Awake, ye servants! Defend the discs!
Die! Die!
None may steal the secrets of the Makers.
To my side, brothers! For the Makers! By Thorison's beard, slay them!
Me, Grimlok, king!
Who dares awaken Archaedas? Who dares the wrath of the Makers?
Can you solo every dungeon in World of Warcraft Classic? I set out to answer this question, but I had to set a few rules. It would be very easy to just level to max level, get the best gear, and one-shot every enemy. So we have one rule: you cannot outlevel the dungeon. Every dungeon has an intended level range, and we have to stick to it. As this wasn't enough of a challenge, I also decided to do everything on hardcore. Before I even started, I expected Uldaman to be one of the harder dungeons to solo. You got bosses with more than 20,000 hit points, some surrounded with multiple adds, and very unique abilities. And on top of that, you cannot even reach the last boss if you're not at least 3 players. So welcome to my attempt to solo Uldaman on hardcore. Quick overview of my current character. Uldaman is for level 42 to level 52. I'm level 48, which is 3 levels below the level cap and only 1 level higher than the end boss. Regarding my gear, it's just a mix out of blue and green items, with the focus on strength and stamina. All my talent points are in Feral, and you will get all the details and the links in the video description. With all of this out of the way, let's jump into the dungeon. Uldaman has an insanely wide level range. You start with enemies at level 35 and end up facing bosses at level 47. So I'm gonna skip most of the trash in this video and only highlight the important parts. Before we get to the first boss, there are 2 enemies you need to watch out for. First up, the Stone-Walled Oracles. These guys drop healing totems, which you will have to interrupt or destroy immediately as soon as they spawn. Second, the Stone-Walled Ambusher patrol the entire starting area and can easily catch you off guard. Luckily, they're non-elite, so by themselves they're very easy to deal with. Before you reach the first boss, don't forget to go down the side path to pick up the Alliance Only quest. And more importantly, grab the item from the chest, you will need it to summon Ironaya later. Now we come to Revelosh. He got 2 abilities, Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt, so expect a lot of nature damage. Plus, he's surrounded by 2 adds, including an Oracle that constantly spams healing wards and lava totems. I started by kiting the melee add around the corners to stay out of line of sight from the Oracle's totems and Revelosh's lightning abilities. Before I pull the boss, I made the mistake of not checking for any more ambushers in this area. And guess what? I got ambushed. That left me dealing with 3 adds on top of the boss. But as long as you keep running out of line of sight, you can get rid of both melee adds pretty quickly. At this point, it's important to mention that I used a nature protection potion. This will absorb most of the damage that the boss does. And as long as you kill all the totems that spawn, you will have no problem here. At the end, I actually got surprised by another ambusher, but luckily this is the first boss, so quite weak and he's already super low. So I could finish both off and get some nice caster shoulders plus 6,000 experience. Before we get to the second boss, we need to clear out the next room. A couple of things to mention here. First, there are 2 invisible lockers at the stairs. Make sure to pull them first before you enter the room, as you will be surrounded by ambushers once you pull the next group. With the room cleared, you can now summon Ironaya. Even though she only does auto attacks and a stun, she's actually a first real challenge. I can't win the damage race against her without healing up, but she hits like a truck as soon as I'm out of bear form. I start the pull with a Stone Shield potion to boost my armor, and from there I rotate through all my cooldowns. As soon as I hit 50%, I start saving rage for my Frenzied Regeneration. Once I get low again, I wait for her knockback and I stun her to get a full heal off. At this point, I am out of most of my defensive cooldowns and low on mana. but I managed to finish her off before things get too dangerous. This earns me another 12,000 experience and another caster item. Before we reach the next boss, we have to clear again some more trash. Starting with this group of non-elite scorpions. Now these scorpions are only level 36, so I figured there wouldn't be much of a threat. Well, turns out I was wrong. It ended up being a pretty tight race. At this point, a quick reminder that I'm playing on hardcore. Therefore, I opt into doing the optional boss in front of the back entrance of Uldaman next. This allowed me to always run out of the dungeon if something goes wrong. In front of that boss, there's a group of 3 dwarves. The relic hunters are the real problem here. They heal, silence you, and hit you with Shadow Ward Pain. On top of that, you have another caster constantly spamming fire abilities. There's no way I could take them all at once, so I kited them back all the way back into the hallway where I came from, to a ledge I found earlier. This ledge is special, because for some reason the enemies can't follow me onto it, so I can just heal up while they stand standing there staring at me. I'll be using this trick a lot moving forward. Now for the Obsidian Sentinel. The first thing I had to learn was that this enemy has Spell Reflect, so I ended up hitting myself with Moonfire on the pole. He also splits into smaller versions of himself once he reaches certain health thresholds, but they are non-elite, so as long as you focus the adds first, the boss isn't too much of a threat. Just to be safe, I also pulled him back all the way into the hallway, but at the end I didn't need any extra tricks to take him down. We are now at the halfway point. We've got 4 more bosses to go, and from here on, the difficulty ramps up a lot. The trash leading to the next boss is brutal. The Earthens come in large groups, mixing melee and caster mobs. I always focus on the caster first, and then grind down the melee adds. Even though they're non-elite, and they go down fairly quickly, they hit super hard. I often find myself finishing these pulls with barely any health left. And if this wasn't enough, there are also these stone golems. Thankfully, you can pull them solo. But they're super tanky and do quite a lot of damage. Every encounter here feels way too close for comfort. After all of this, we come up to the Ancient Stonekeeper. First thing I did was pull him all the way back to my safe spot. But he's super annoying, because he constantly summons sandstorms that will slow and silence you, even at range. So when I tried to run away to heal, he just interrupted me from distance. Luckily, I played it safe, rotating my cooldowns and slowly wearing him down while constantly moving. At the end, I earned over 20,000 experience and a rare pair of gloves that I can't even use. Now we head to Galgann Firehammer. But first, another group of scorpions, this time level 43. The first group almost killed me, so I was super nervous going into the next pull, and I had every reason to be. I barely managed to kill 2 of them before I was dangerously low on health. I had to use my ledge trick again to reset the fight. But even with a full reset and frenzied regeneration, I couldn't finish them all off in one go, so I had to reset again. This was the toughest fight so far. But once the scorpions were down, there wasn't much trash left that is worth mentioning here. You can pull everything individually and take as much time as you want. But the boss himself? Oh boy, where do I even start? He has 2 elite adds with 4,000 health each, and they deal tons of fire damage. They also stack a debuff on you, increasing the amount of fire damage you take with each stack, making this a tight DPS race. The boss itself has over 13,000 health and does even more fire damage. There's no way I could take them all at once. So here's what I did. I used a fire protection potion, which helped me survive just long enough to kill the adds. But at this point, my life was way too low to continue the fight. I also got 3 fire debuffs, reducing heavily my fire resistance. So I had to reset the fight and thought I have to come up with a different strategy. But when I went back for my second attempt, I noticed that the adds didn't respawn, turning this whole fight into a more manageable 1 versus 1. All I had to do now was to pull back the boss to my safe spot and make sure I correctly rotate all my cooldowns. Even though it was just now the boss himself, I still had to use my Frenzied Regeneration, Bark Skin and Innervate to survive long enough to defeat him. This earned me another 20,000 experience and a really nice pair of caster shoulders. Latest by now, I'm noticing a huge difficulty spike. But before we can reach the next boss, we have to talk about Stone-Walled Brawlers. These guys are extremely dangerous. They have over 5,000 life points and enrage once they reach 50%, which increases their damage and attack speed. And on top of that, they have Thrash. For those that don't know Thrash, a quick overview. Thrash adds 2 more auto attacks to your normal attack. This by itself isn't really the dangerous part. All it does is a smaller melee burst when they attack you. But it becomes dangerous once you add a small mechanic that isn't too obvious. If an enemy with Thrash hasn't hit you for a while, because of some CC or you kited it, it will stack up charges of this Thrash, releasing them all at once the next time it attacks you, creating a huge amount of burst damage. And now we are at this point where we have to get through an army of these brawlers. Almost every single group here has a brawler and sometimes even 2. This whole section is extremely risky on hardcore. I'm racing against time here too, because eventually the trash behind me will respawn. After surviving all of this, we come to Grimlok. He's like a harder version of the first boss, Revelosh. I used another nature protection potion to deal with his lightning damage. But what makes him tough are all the adds around him. Another brawler, another Trog, and a Basilisk. I opt to sleep the Basilisk and slowly kite backwards while dodging the boss line of sight. I took down the brawler first and then healed up. Afterwards, I positioned myself in front of the reset spot, but I really wanted to get this boss down without having to reset, especially because I didn't know if the adds would respawn if I did. So I committed to using all my cooldowns and getting both the Basilisk and the Geomancer down. At this point, Grimlok was out of mana, so I could quickly heal up and finish him off without much trouble, earning me another 22,000 experience and a pretty good caster chest piece. For those who haven't done Uldaman, you need 3 people to activate the altar and summon Archaedas. He is considered the end boss of this dungeon. But even though you need 3 people, I was convinced there must be a way to sheath this and reach him solo. So I took a break from my hardcore character and logged onto my softcore druid to try a few things out. First thing I tried was clipping through a gate or somehow interacting with the lever behind the door. But no real luck here. Then I tried clicking on the altar and just go AFK, hoping something would happen after a while. Spoiler alert, nothing happened. At this point, I was getting desperate. I even asked a GM for flying, hoping I could clip through the ceiling or walls, but no matter what I tried, I couldn't reach the end boss. So unless someone else finds a way, I'm pretty confident you cannot solo Archaedas. But I got too far to stop here now. So I was thinking, what about the fight itself? What if you had somebody helping you summoning him? Could you solo him then? With some help from Camelotion, a super big supporter from the stream who already helped me in Scarlet Monastery, and another real life friend of mine, we summoned the boss. So now here, Archaedas solo on level 48 in World of Warcraft Classic. Normally, I go into detail about his abilities, my prep, consumables, but turns out you can ignore most of that. He's probably the easiest boss in the entire dungeon. Just kite him all the way back to the Grimlok's room, stand by the wall, and jump up and down when he gets close. From time to time, he will spawn a small ad, but you can kill it pretty quickly. And that's it. A very boring way to end this insanely tough dungeon. But thank you very much for watching. And next will be Zul'Farrak.